found the only geek culture showcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Geek Speak Show. The Geek Speak Show talks about and to the movers and shakers in geek culture.
God bless the geek.
The Geek Speak Show is powered by GeekTyrant.com, Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and MightyVale.com. Get ready to speak geek on the Geek Speak Show with your host, Henry. Hey everybody, welcome to the Geek Speak Show. I'm Henry. Arielle and Rachel will be here momentarily, and gotta give you a warning before we do. When they do get here, we are gonna have a spoiler-filled discussion on The Dark Knight Rises. So if you haven't seen it yet, gonna give you plenty of warning. A spoiler-filled discussion on The Dark Knight Rises. I'm sure all of you have seen it, especially if you listen to this show. You've seen it a few times by now, but we'll give you plenty of warning before we get into that. The Dark Knight Rises also signals pretty much the end of the summer blockbuster season. Nothing major really to look forward to until December 14th exactly. Something comes to the theaters that we've been waiting for a long time. That's right, that would be Peter Jackson's The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. But if you're in San Jose this weekend, actually right now through this weekend, July 29th, Middle-earth has come to us in the form of Charlie Ross's one-man Lord of the Rings. You all may remember Charlie from his one-man Star Wars trilogy. Really, really awesome performance. Can't wait to see one-man Lord of the Rings, and Charlie is on with us. Charlie, welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So again, it's playing through here in San Jose at the San Jose Rep. Through this Sunday, July 29th, you guys can get tickets on our homepage or at the San Jose Rep website. And Charlie, let's start first of all by, after the one-man Star Wars trilogy, what made you want to take on the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Well, I was kind of looking for something that was similar in the structure to Star Wars, sort of the story structure. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm right in saying that, Lord of the Rings pretty much follows, or rather Star Wars follows Lord of the Rings sort of structure. And the way the films, were made, I know they didn't follow the books perfectly, but I really enjoyed the films. And I guess because I loved the films the way I did and loved the source material, the books, it made it really easy to kind of have the same sort of happy love, geek mix, sort of, trying to poke a little bit of fun, but in a nice way. Mm-hmm. At Lord of the Rings. It's sort of the spirit of the Star Wars show is that we'd call it a light piss-taking. In other words, we'd make fun of it in a way that we also love it. Mm-hmm. So I guess Lord of the Rings was kind of I wanted to make fun of it, and not in a bad way, but, sort of poke fun at, the characters a little bit because, we get someone like Legolas who's just so impossibly, handsome and sort of almost girl-like. It was just begging to sort of be given the Charlie Ross treatment, so to speak.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. Is this is based more on the movies than the books?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, simply because I think in a popular sense, they are more popular than the books. Right. Most people that come to see the show will have seen the films. So, when I'm doing impressions of Gollum or Treebeard or Gandalf, it's going to be based upon the Peter Jackson films and the actors that portrayed them, rather than trying to just make up something that was based on the books. And I know they've done a Hobbit musical or a Hobbit sort of, play, but if you don't know the story really well, then you can kind of get lost. And I'm sure the responsibility of the playwright is to tell that story in a way that, a novice can walk in the door and enjoy it. But this is more for the people, like my show is more for the people that actually know the source material. And I've read the books a lot, as well as the Silmarillion and other extended stuff, which it helped to inform the decisions of what I would leave in and what I would take out when I was trying to adapt it. And I guess the purpose of that is that I can, when I was actually writing it, I could try to assume that the people that would be coming to see the show would know possibly the books, but more than likely know the films. and there'd be some that would know both the books and the films. So I kind of can layer in different jokes for, from the novice to the super, super nerd.
What kind of preparation goes into that, actually? I mean, I assume a lot of book reading, but also a lot of movie watching?
Yeah. I mean, I watched them a lot, and the nice thing was when I was able to watch them, I was able to just watch it as a fan, a person who was just getting caught up in the parts that I loved of the films, not coming at it from a point of view of what am I going to take, what am I going to take out, what am I going to leave in. I waited until I had sort of absorbed, I think, through watching and reading, absorbed enough where I could sit down at a computer and just write from the top of my head, what I could remember from my memory. The idea being that whatever I could retain should, in theory, be what I think the average person who's seen the films, maybe more than once, could probably retain themselves. So that, I guess I'm kind of jogging that memory. And it's the same thing with the Star Wars show, and I didn't realize I was doing it. But, over 30 years, people have been able to absorb a lot of Star Wars, and, obviously a lot of it's sort of woven itself into popular culture. But even something like Lord of the Rings, where, the films, I mean, they haven't been out for a long time. They were, I think, done in 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
And yet there's parts of it, and there's, I guess, the genuine love that people have for films where I can actually trigger that memory. And it's just through sometimes focusing in on idiosyncrasies of the characters, or just parts of the films, trying to portray a part of the film that we all really love. That for me, as a kind of a bona fide nerd, I mean, it sometimes would bring tears to my eyes just watching some of it because it was so beautifully done, the film. So, I don't know, even though I'm taking huge visual spectacle and the music, and I'm sort of taking all that spectacle out of it and just trying to portray it as a single person. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I'm telling it, the style of the show. I think it's accessing what's already in people's heads. And I guess I'm not sure what that is that embeds itself into our heads. But I've rarely had with the Lord of the Rings show. I've rarely had people say, I wish you put that part in, or I wish you put that part in. Whereas with Star Wars, there's always things that people wish that I would put back in. But I think it's because people know Star Wars a heck of a lot more than they do Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, plus with Star Wars, it is a movie, and Lord of the Rings, with the hardcore fans, they know the books before the movie.
Yeah.
The movies are part of it. So if you leave something out, it doesn't really matter because it captures the essence of the story. I think that's
right.
Why it's a little different than Star Wars.
Well, I guess the thing is that I'm already doing an adaptation of an adaptation,
right.
And I don't have to worry about taking the flack for, say, having Arwen be this much larger character, which she was not in the book. Mm-hmm. I can sort of take her out, and actually by taking her out of my version, pretty much entirely, I'm, without having to say anything about it, I'm kind of agreeing with the people that had a problem with the prominence of her role, but I'm not pointedly making fun of her. I'm just removing her. So it's weird to do an adaptation of an adaptation. In a sense, the filmmakers already did a lot of the work for me. Because if you can imagine trying to take the books themselves and adapt it for film, and then trying to adapt it for stage, I think the film did so much work storytelling that even though I'm making these huge editorial jumps in my retelling of it, people have the films to sort of fill in the gaps, the stuff that I'm leaving out, and there's parts of I guess the films that, even though people wanted to see something like the character of Tom Bombadil, I can just try to make a joke about Tom Bombadil, even though he does not appear in the films. I can still integrate him into my telling of it. And it's weird because I am licensed by Saul Zaentz, who also licensed Peter Jackson to make the films. And I don't know. I guess they must. They must know that what I'm doing with my show is that it's both promoting the films and the books, but it's not meant to be mean-spirited as a critique. It's supposed to be, I guess, an entertaining critique homage to it. But in a way,
I think that the reason why is because I haven't seen it yet, but they see that you're doing it with respect, not, like you said, not to make fun of it. Right.
Well, because who the hell would want to come watch a show where somebody says, "Isn't that garbage?" If I came, I haven't seen The Dark Knight Rises. I've unfortunately been on tour during this whole period of time, and I really, really I'm curious. I'm interested to see if the last one's good. And don't tell me, because I want to make my own choice. But I really, really wanted to consider doing Batman as sort of a next story. Now, even though that doesn't follow like another, I'd like to do a one-man show of it, but I know it doesn't follow the tale of Luke Skywalker or Frodo Baggins, but I really, really love the characters, at least in the first and second, and I'm assuming that they'd have decent characters to work with. The problem is that you have so much source material with Batman that it's almost destined to piss somebody off, no matter what you do. Lord of the Rings has the source material, and once again, you cannot please everybody. When you're trying to adapt them, say for film. I really don't even know if it's possible to, if you're trying to make a theater show, I'm not sure if it's possible to know all there is to know about Batman, and I really don't know if I had to sort of do a one-man Batman show, it would have to be almost purely based upon the films, because I think I'm right in saying that most people's knowledge of Batman has got to come from the Tim Burton, from the television show, from the
Adam West
the early days. Yeah, and then obviously the new films. So, because I don't think the average person is a graphic novel, reading person, and not everybody read, Dark Horse comics and all that. So, to get all the insides and outs, I don't know. I think for what I do, even though it's very, very sort of nerd-centric, it also has to be something that can appeal to the average person, which makes me feel like a bit of a charlatan sometimes, because I know too much, I think, about Star Wars and too much about Lord of the Rings. And yet I'm trying to just, I guess, be an educator or something, giving people the crash course in Lord of the Rings and hoping that if they haven't seen Lord of the Rings, that they will in fact watch it. And that's a weird thing. I get a lot of people at the show who've never seen Lord of the Rings. It's bizarre.
I was going to say, there's no such thing as knowing too much about Star Wars or Lord of the Rings.
I agree. Well, the thing is, the more you think you know, the more you find out how much more there is to know. And it's the wonderful thing about, I think, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, so many different things, is that when you start to spawn sort of a fan-driven world where, you get fan fiction or you get whatever, people start to live it, and it becomes a breathing, living thing. And I guess in a sense, what I'm doing with this here is sort of joining into the fan legacy, that fan-driven legacy of keeping Star Wars and Lord of the Rings alive and changing, I guess. I don't change them too much, but as far as where I go to and the people I get to see, they're seeing Star Wars or Lord of the Rings in a way that perhaps was never intended to be seen, but is, and they're seeing it, I guess, filtered through my head, but also with my years of experience of sharing the love of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings with people all over the world. It's an incredible thing to do.
Yeah, and we're talking to Charlie Ross, the one-man Lord of the Rings, playing through Sunday, July 29th at the San Jose Rep. You can get tickets on their website or on our website on the homepage. You can click on there. It takes you right to there. Also, all the information on Charlie is on, there's a picture of Charlie there. Click on it, take you to his website. So, Charlie, when you came up with the one-man Lord of the Rings, it's all written, all ready to be performed. When you practice, do you practice in front of friends or families, or how do you do that?
Well, the script writing didn't really take that much time, believe it or not. It only took maybe 1 or 2, hours of just sitting down with the script. And I tend to work on my feet. So I actually have a director, TJ Daw. TJ's an awesome guy. And we both worked on Star Wars together in so far as actor-director. And he wasn't really directing because, the material's already there. What I was sort of doing was having somebody who genuinely loves Star Wars or Lord of the Rings as much as I do, has that a real attention to detail, and just trying to make him laugh, really, and as well as trying to choreograph the movement, because I need to sort of figure out on the fly how to be, an Uruk-hai, then suddenly pop down to Gollum, and then pop up to being Gandalf, and just trying to kind of almost do a mind over matter thing where I'm just trying to reenact what what was in the films, right, and just trying to be every character as it would be, unfolding, either in the film itself, in a scene, or the way that I've edited it together. So it's kind of a hard thing to explain. It's sort of like kids reenacting their favorite parts of Star Wars. I sort of have to put on my 8-year-old thinking cap and get rid of my inhibitions and just kind of be everything, and just play every character. And because I've got the script, I have some, I actually have some structure to work with. But I didn't put it in front of other people, not until maybe after a day or 2 of rehearsing it, just because I wanted to make sure that it was right. I wanted to make sure it was clean. I wanted to make sure that my voices were sounding good, and that if there was anything that needed to be tweaked, that I think TJ would have already had told me, at this point, after a couple of days rehearsal. And I guess then the first group of people were just invited peers that were actors and directors, because they can give you really good insight, and sometimes they can give you really poor insight. And weirdly enough, the first group of people that I ever performed it for gave me some of the worst advice I'd ever received. There was at least 10 of them that just didn't like the show, and they said that they sort of dissuaded me from doing it, which I kind of found a little bit difficult to sort of take. And I'm glad I didn't listen to them, because it was far more successful at the time than even Star Wars had been. And I felt better about my work that I had done there. So I don't know why they said that, but, sometimes you just have to, if you can't entertain, say, a bunch of friends and make them laugh, you sort of have to, you put them in front of people that have a critical eye. I think sometimes people lose the ability to laugh and to love. I don't know what everybody's feeling towards Lord of the Rings, the films, what it happened to be. I only knew how I felt. And, anyway, it was kind of a bad experience, the first sharing with a group of people. But ultimately, I was able to sort of get beyond it.
Now, is the final performance, is it the same everyone, or there's subtle, not in the story, in the plot, but I mean in like the way you do a certain voice or a certain character?
Is there sort of a standard way that I do it?
I mean, does it change a little from performance to performance? Like, for example, you didn't like the Gollum in one, and so you do it a little better in the next one? Well,
no, actually, it's weird. When you do something like, something on stage, I tend to be, I guess, pretty standardized. I know what I want to get. So if it's, Gollum, I mean, I've worked up the, we want it, we need it, must have the precious, master is our friend. I've worked on the pitch. I've worked on the emphasis, and I guess my voice kind of warms up after, say, the first performance. So in a way, I guess it changes, because things get deeper. For like, I will leave you on the western borders of the forest. That happens after, at least one performance. Things kind of get pitched lower. And as far as the choreography, that has to be the same every time, because I'm trying to make it I'm trying to make it, work and run at about 65 to 70 minutes for the show. I guess the only thing might be is if I start to vamp on as a different character. If I start to somebody's cell phone rings, well, if Gollum's talking, then you can guarantee that Gollum's going to, react to it. And I'm able to do that because it's my own one-person show, and there's always an element of spontaneity because it's live, and because I've done it so many times, I feel comfortable to drop out of the pace of the show, and if I want to, engage even further with the audience. So I think sometimes the content, that spontaneity adds to the show, and that it can even make the show longer. But as far as the way that I perform it, that is sort of what I did through rehearsal. I wanted to solidify that choreography and the performance aspect, the way I could speak, so that I could repeat it again and again and again. But because it's live and because it's always a different evening, and I might be feeling really strange one day, or I might be feeling sillier the next day, I can still allow my mood to match up with the mood of the audience and make something that's unique every single performance.
That's something else I was wondering also is, do you encourage or welcome audience participation or reactions? Like you mentioned the cell phone thing right now, yeah.
Well, I don't want cell phones going off, but
yeah, I was going to say, everybody in San Jose, don't make your phones go off. That's just
well, unless you want to engage in a way you may not have intended. No, I think sometimes people do, whether they mean to or not, they start to participate. They might just sort of have a vocalization. They might say something. They might. Yeah, whether they intend to or not. If people are trying to do a Gollum off, well, that would be kind of funny. I guess if people want to be more rambunctious than other people, they're welcome to try it. But it may or may not work well. I've had people that, at least with the Star Wars show, where they start to do an impression while I'm doing an impression. Like I might be doing Chewbacca, and then they start doing their own Wookiee. And so I kind of invite them to come up and, go ahead, take the stage. Do your own Star Wars for a bit, or do Chewie. But people, they won't engage that far. They don't usually come up on stage and do more. They only go to a point. So it's if people are trying to sort of go head to head, I welcome it. I say bring it. Because it's just sort of a fun kind of competition. But I don't think it's ever mean-spirited. People just, I guess they kind of let themselves get caught up in the experience of the show, and let's all share our best impressions that we can do.
Yeah, speaking of the impressions, it sound pretty good. I also have a link on our Facebook page. You guys can take a look at that and hear some of the Gollum, some of the other characters. Your Frodo it sounded just like Elijah Wood. The Gollum, you just heard a little bit in Treebeard. How do you get how long do you work on it, and how do you get the right voice down?
Well, once again, it's a bit of a mind over matter thing, and sometimes I end up having to take long walks, remote walks, where I can sit there and talk to myself at full voice and not get arrested because somebody's crazy walking down the street. One that was difficult for me, I guess it was a mental block, was when Saruman and sort of Gandalf when they rediscover Gandalf, after they thought he was dead, and he appears to them in the woods. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where they're not sure if they're seeing Saruman or if they're seeing Gandalf, and it's sort of oscillating. That voice, I believe, is being actually vocalized by Christopher Lee, but Christopher Lee could do a decent enough impression of Ian McKellen. So it was, you were tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits. They passed this way the day before yesterday. They met someone they did not expect. Does that comfort you? Like it's supposed to just oscillate a little bit between the two. And that for me was difficult trying to imagine being able to sort of flex my own voice, because I'm not either Christopher Lee and I'm not Ian McKellen, but here I'm trying to be Christopher Lee doing an impression of Ian McKellen, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so trying to do impressions is a lot of trial and error, and you kind of have to be willing to just sort of say, no, that didn't work. No, that didn't work. How do I get it? And, Gollum was a massive mental block for me, because I thought, if I can't do a Gollum, there's no point in doing the show. And luckily I was able to sort of figure out what it is, or how to do it. And here's an odd thing, and for people that do impressions, I'm not sure if it works this way for everybody, but I know it works this way for me. If I visualize the performer doing their role, and whether it's Samwise Gamgee or it could be, Grishnak or something like that, it doesn't matter. If I imagine their face, the voice, for some reason, will always follow. So I have to sort of visualize how they're saying things or what they look like. And I've been told that my face actually changes with the voices that I'm doing. And I'm not aware of this. I'm not trying to do this. It's something that your body naturally does when you're trying to do impressions or whatever. Maybe it's something to do with people's voices matching up with the looks on their face, or maybe it's a mind over matter thing where you're just trying to focus in on being somebody, and you end up kind of looking like somebody. A great example would be watching people who did impressions of George W. Bush. A lot of people would kind of adapt his facial expression while they're trying to do his voice. And, that makes for a full impression, or a full-on looking impression. Mm-hmm. But it's something that I think for people that do impersonate others, they have to be, I'm assuming, have to be visualizing the person they're trying to do an impression of, and just, trying to mimic them in face and in voice. So, when I had to rehearse or just try it out for myself, because when I was going to rehearsal, I didn't want to be working on voices while I'm in rehearsal. I wanted to make sure that my voices were decent enough when I was trying to rehearse. So I had to, sneak away to not look like I'm an absolute loon on the side of the street.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting, because I haven't done impressions, but I've done voice over acting and voice work. And a lot of people, myself included, that is actually what we do when they tell us, play, a little kid or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We actually, scrunch down a little on the microphone and try to be, like you said, to become that character. Yeah. So yeah, that, to me, it makes perfect sense. But that would be something interesting for the audience to actually see how a voice actor gets into that role. That they get to see that with you on stage.
Right. Yeah. It's a very strange thing to be doing this show, because it's calling up on a lot of different skills, I guess, or just tricks. And, you don't usually get to see, except when they stage it, for extras and DVDs, you don't often get to see the voice actors working and how they work.
Right.
And as you said, you hunch down, you become the character in some form. It's like for people to say smile when you're on the telephone, because if you smile, it comes across in your voice, and somehow it does. It raises your voice. You sound happy because you're smiling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess for this here, it's like watching a live impression show or something. It's such a combination of bizarre things. I'd almost call it performance art, but then that would make people run the other direction. So I won't call it performance art.
You kind of answered this already in the beginning, but do you plan on taking on any other trilogies? I was actually going to mention The Dark Knight, but now it seems like The Hobbit Peter Jackson's trying to make it a trilogy, so maybe you'll take that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping The Hobbit will really work out. Just as I'm hoping that if I want to go see The Dark Knight Rises, that it might make sense. What's difficult is that it's like trying to fall in love, intentionally fall in love. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult thing to do. You can't really force it. The thing about Star Wars and the thing about The Lord of the Rings is that, I like anyone else who loves Star Wars, I came by it pretty damn honestly. And with Lord of the Rings, I wasn't even doing the Star Wars show by the time the first film had come out. and I knew the books inside and out. So I naturally fell in love, not having any intention of adapting Star Wars or adapting Lord of the Rings to be a stage show. So the love was real. Now, as I've been doing these shows for many years now, trying to look and watch films, thinking, well, what film now can I adapt? What film now can I adapt? Which one do I'm missing that natural, what I would call nerdy love. And by nerd, I mean, when I'm a nerd, I will wear I'll wear my love for something unabashedly upon my sleeve. If I'm watching Star Wars, I tend to watch it by myself because I, for some reason, kind of get all caught up by it, and it's more than just a film for me. It ties back to when I was a kid. And same thing with Lord of the Rings. I was in a very difficult spot as an actor, just having to believe that my career is going to work out, but really not having any massive success at the time. And I kind of felt like watching Lord of the Rings that there was a lot of hopeful messages, and things seemed often very bleak, and yet people pressed on. And I found myself kind of just wanting to adapt that sense of, all right, things seem awful, but it's time to keep working through this, because even though I knew Lord of the Rings works out, it's still a beautiful tale to be told, and to see it performed the way it was so masterfully, it became an inspiration to me to want to continue acting, so that maybe at some point in my life I'd have a chance to do something as wonderful as they did in the films. And unfortunately, I've missed the Hobbit boat entirely. I couldn't possibly get cast in the Hobbit now, but I'm hoping that the Hobbit will be just as awesome as Lord of the Rings, and maybe I'll just try to watch it as a fan rather than as a person who's trying to imagine, adapting it, because it really has to have the love at the core. You have to love something, because if I go up on stage and I'm pretending to love something, I think anybody who is a true fan of Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, they would know that I wasn't truly a fan, and I would come across as a bit of a liar.
Yeah.
So, it's luckily with Batman, and I never considered Batman when I first started watching them, the new films, the Nolan films. They just were really, really, high quality films, and I was rather enjoying some of the highs and lows, and enjoying the fact that it really does take itself incredibly seriously at times, and I take it incredibly serious at times. I guess that begs the question, why so serious? But it's when you love something, it I don't know, like if you love your crazy aunt, she might drive you crazy sometimes, and if you did an impression of her to your friends, they wouldn't necessarily know what you were talking about, but your other parts of your family would, and there has to be a bit of a love at the core of sort of any mimicry, any homage, and I guess that's what makes for comedy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I always said it on the air on this show, especially with everybody who listens to this kind of show. Not sure how old you are. I'm almost 40, but Star Wars, the original ones, they made me who and what I am today. And I'm assuming the same thing with you. Yeah. Well, I mean, it literally made me who I am today. That's what I do. It's my job. It's the most. I have to continually shake my head, because it must feel this way for anybody who maybe fell in love with Star Wars or, say, Lord of the Rings, and finds themselves working in some form, on Star Wars or new parts of Star Wars or new parts of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, whatever. It feels surreal to be able to say, yes, I do the one-man Star Wars trilogy. And, yeah, when I watched it as a child, I could never have been able to tell myself that one day you will, in fact, be closer to Star Wars than you could possibly imagine. That this is not a waste of time. This is work, is what you're doing. You're investing time in something that will directly affect your future. So, I think for
anybody who's being told that they're wasting their time because they're doing something like playing video games or they're obsessing over something, I think obsession can sometimes lead to, I don't necessarily want to say profit, but it can actually profit your future, and that you can take whatever perceived negative amount of time spent and twist it around into something that's positive, and that takes you, say, out of the television den and thrusts you out into the world. So it's, I don't know, is that an incubation period? I don't know. But yeah, Star Wars absolutely made me who I am, because it allowed me to dream in a way that was not terrestrial. It was, let's get off this planet, let's do something crazy, And I guess that's sort of what and how Lord of the Rings and my one-man Star Wars show, how they've sort of been not just mind over matter on stage, but mind over matter in life.
Yeah, I was going to say also, if you do decide to take on the Dark Knight, the movie trilogy, it's going to kind of kill your voice. Having to talk like this the whole time.
It's true. It's true. Well, that's always the key, though. I use a microphone on stage because, that can wear on a voice for sure.
Yeah.
But how to do microphone tricks. So you can kind of actually be doing less with your voice than you would be if you're just doing it a cappella. And that microphone can help you sort of sustain yourself over a longer period of time. If anything, when I think about the Batman show or films, the fact that his voice seemed to get more gravelly by the second one. I don't know how things are in the third here, but it's definitely worth making a bit of a comment that that his voice got a little bit gravelier in the second film. I have no idea how to even approach it, story-wise. So it's all kind of an adventure for me to even consider adapting Batman, because I have to pull out a common thread between the three films.
Yeah, but you definitely get to see his latest one-man Lord of the Rings, Charlie Ross. It's running in San Jose at the San Jose Rep this week, running through Sunday, July 29th. You can get the tickets on our homepage or on the San Jose Rep website. Charlie, thanks a lot for coming on. I'm going to go sometime this week and check it out, and cannot wait to see that one.
I think you'll enjoy it. And if even for people that have not seen Lord of the Rings a ton, this is probably the easiest way to sort of refresh your memory. 70 minutes.
Yeah, I've seen it a ton, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy this one too.
Sweet. Awesome.
So thanks, Charlie, for coming on. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks for having me.
Geek Movie Rewind. Movie Rewind. The movies that made you a geek. Except for the part where you didn't see them. Here's the Geek Speak Show's resident movie geek, Louise Ducray.
Hey, I'm Louise Ducray, and on today's installment of Movie Rewind, we'll be talking a little bit about a movie called The Rocketeer. I love this movie. It's just a whole lot of fun, and it seems like it. I think this is sad. I don't want you to miss out, so listen. The Rocketeer was released by Disney in 1991 and based on a superhero character created in the 80s by Dave Stevens. Cliff Secord, the Rocketeer, is sort of this all-American type guy, a down-on-his-luck pilot who discovers a futuristic jetpack that was created by one Mr. Howard Hughes, who, by the way, is played by Terry O'Quinn from Lost. Anyway, did I mention the jetpack? The dude's got a jetpack. He flies around being a hero, and he's called the Rocketeer, which is awesome. The character is an homage to the Saturday matinee serials of the 30s and 40s, which, listen, if you love Indiana Jones, you owe it to yourself to watch this movie. And it has a really marvelous soundtrack by James Horner, which you've probably actually heard on sports TV or at theme parks without realizing it, and rather excellent effects for the time. They hold up. Cliff, the Rocketeer himself, is played by Billy Campbell, a relative unknown at the time, and sort of still. He played Quincy Morris in Coppola's Dracula. Wikipedia reminds me, helpfully. Anyway, Cliff's cohorts include Alan Arkin as his mechanic buddy, who I can't help but be a little bit in love with whenever I watch this, and Jennifer Connelly as Cliff's aspiring actress girlfriend. Only a few years after Labyrinth, and before her breakout role in Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. You like Jennifer Connelly in Dark City? You'll love her here. You have seen Dark City, right? So, in addition to a fairly spectacular cast, this movie also has gangsters, Nazis, car chases, those big swingy old-timey action punches that get telegraphed from a mile away from the guy's face, which are sort of great. Also an airship, and Timothy Dalton as a smarmy bad guy, which, if you've seen Hot Fuzz, you know is super awesome. Also, there's a diner shaped like a gigantic dog. The Rocketeer is basically a classic pulp adventure story, and if I haven't convinced you yet, it was directed by Joe Johnston, whose most recent credit is another little superhero movie you may have heard of called Captain America: The First Avenger. But anyway, I promised my therapist I would stop talking about the Avengers. So, that's The Rocketeer. What do you think? Contact me at louise@thegeekspeakshow.com with your comments, questions, and unadulterated praise.
That's the Geek Movie Rewind. Agree? Disagree? Send your comments or suggestions to Louise at thegeekspeakshow.com.
This is Mark Zigby, writer, producer, and director of Space Command, and you're listening to the Geek Speak Show.
Stop hitting my microphones. Welcome back to the Geek Speak Show. So we're back from Middle Earth. Again, that is playing all this week here in San Jose at the San Jose Rep. The one-man Lord of the Rings with Charlie Ross. It is till Sunday, July 29th. Tickets on our homepage where you're listening to the podcast. Just scroll down a little bit. You can get the tickets right on there or the San Jose Rep website directly. But either way, go there. And like I have my ring here, my precious. You can hear Charlie Ross do all that. So, little movie came out this weekend. Everybody saw it. Oh, by the way, guess who's back here? Say hi, Rachel.
It's me. Hi, guys.
Hi, Rachel.
Well,
I missed you.
She's here, sort of. We have this technology thing, like you guys with your fancy schmancy phones.
She's here.
It's my virtual presence device.
That's right. You are present with us. Your voice is carrying through the internet.
Where's our producers? We need to get a hold of Stark Industries, and we need holograms in here. The ones that we can touch and do everything to.
Can I please be a hologram? I've always wanted that.
Only if you say the phrase.
I want to be a hologram?
No, there is a phrase for all Star Wars fans when they are a hologram of what they must say. Oh, come on.
Well, hold on. My favorite one
Yeah?
is "Yes, Master."
Yeah, but that's not the one that everyone wants to hear.
Just talking about Willis.
The first hologram message in the movie.
You're not my only hope.
I know.
You say that, but you don't know how true it is. There's no one else to save you.
That's true. Because when it comes to technology, forget about it. I still use a typewriter.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
So you should be familiar with that in a few months, Rachel. So actually, The Dark Knight Rises came out, and again, warned you like 21 times during the intro to Charlie Ross's interview. We will talk spoilers. We will let you know that Catwoman is actually Scarecrow, and Scarecrow is actually Selena Kyle.
Yeah, no, it blew my mind when the big reveal happened, and then she like unzippered from her forehead all the way down, cartoon style. I was like, what just happened?
So the first thing, it's kind of a big dub, but the first thing is either one of you take it. What do you guys think?
I thought it was too dark and intense for me. It was a very well-realized, very dark world that I didn't like visiting, and I don't want to go back and see again.
What?
That's true.
I thought it was perfect.
What? No. Like, perfect is not me leaving the theater at 12:30 at night and just wanting to, like, go and curl up with the blanket and a stuffed animal and cry because
but I wanted
sucks.
to leave the theater and run in and join the fight and be like, yes, I gotta find Robin because, it's Robin.
Well, no,
and
you have to
Joseph
find
Gordon-Levitt.
And no, you have to really find Joseph Gordon-Levitt anyway. Like, that just has to happen. But
in all seriousness, though, that what you just said doesn't really mean anything because what happened on Friday night or Colorado, you can't tell me that what happens in a movie theater is worse than that. So that right away, anything that we see out here doesn't really matter because of that. And again, I said it in our review. We had our moment of silence and everything. So if you're going to say that, the movie's too dark and all that, that's fine. But remember what kind of world you actually do live in.
Oh no, I know.
Seriously.
I know that I live in a world where horrible, awful things happen, and I don't even think that it's a problem that the movie presented a very dark world. It's just that if I am going to go and spend my couple of hours at a movie, that's not what I'm looking for. So I can say that it was really well done and that it was mostly okay acted, and that it was very much a visual treat, but that I'm not going to go back and see it again. Because
but that's what that movie needed to be. It needed to be that dark. We already set the stage with the other two of how Batman is supposed to be darker and into this more morbid world, and that was more Batman. And so if this would have been any fluffier or any lighter, it wouldn't have been right. I loved the darkness. I thought it was dead on.
Well, no, and I'm solidly sold on the fact that you can have a movie that has a comic book character in it that is dark and serious and takes on serious matters and takes on serious things. I'm just saying I'm not gonna go like that movie wasn't made for me. It was made for a different audience, and that's okay. Like, I don't have to have everything that comes out be made for me, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt doesn't have enough time in the world to make all the movies for me like I'd have.
So your reaction was exactly my reaction to this poster we have up here, The Amazing Spider-Man, the new one. Mm-hmm. I think you said in the fact that week when it came out, the Comic-Con week, that it's not. Everybody liked it, and they said, "Oh, it's Spider-Man from the comics, just not my comics." Mm-hmm. And yeah, these comic book movies are not made for everybody. In fact, the interview with Charlie Ross we just had, we kind of alluded to that at the end, because he was talking about maybe doing the one-man Dark Knight Rises trilogy live on stage. But it's kind of hard to do that with any comic book movie, not just Batman, because there's so many stories at this point, especially with a character like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, who have been around for years. And, the fanboys, like our favorite, David Lee, the fanboys will always scream about, the Chitauri's from Ultimate, and this is from this, and this is from the 616, and people who are just go in there with their kids because they don't have anything to do in the summer, and they just want to sit them down and watch Spider-Man. They're like, what is this guy talking about? That's why they don't sit with us at the lunch table. But we know those stories, and some people can't follow it. This is, Rachel, you're in the, or going to be, hope to be, in the movie making art department. Right. As directors, this is the conundrum that they face. Is when you take on something like The Lord of the Rings, like Batman, Superman, and Rachel, you better close your ears for this one. When Star Wars gets rebooted a few years from now, it'll happen. Trust me. But when that happens, someone like Rachel, like myself, who grew up with Star Wars, with Batman, with all this, we want to see our Batman up there. And when you take it to a little anything that feels different, it doesn't feel right. Kind of like what I said with Spider-Man.
Well, it's really interesting, too, because you get the sense with the next Superman movie that's going to be coming out that they're doing that same thing, where they're taking a different angle on Superman, and they're actually telling a story that I think the really hardcore Superman fans are so digging and so into, because it's presenting Superman outside of any sense of clownishness and outside of any sense of
well, we hope
a young idea. Well, and the way that it's being presented and marketed, and like the look of it, I think that they're really trying to make it grounded in a reality that we can be in. And so they're trying to present that and take it away from that campy factor or what has been before.
So let me try an experiment with both of you. Right now, first thing that comes to your mind when I say Superman, what do you guys think?
I think of red and blue. Just like that's immediately what pops up.
Rachel?
I flash between a picture of a comic, an old poster, and 2 or 3 different movies. I kind of blend the whole world.
Yeah, I just get like the costume just comes immediately to mind.
Well, good, because I don't know if you've seen it or not. Spoiler alert. Costume is a little different. It's tailored more like the New 52 Superman. Would that bother either of you?
No, well, because it's not one iconic costume, that it's a blending of all of it. Like, there should be boots, there should be spandex, there should be a cape, and there should be an emblem. But as long as those elements exist.
Yeah, and we've seen enough of the old tights costumes be changed into something more modern at this point that we're expecting that.
Yeah, no, straight up, look at what the very first X-Men movie, where like they even had a nod to that, where they're in like their tight leather like action suits. Exactly. What do you want? Yellow spandex? Like, no, if you had actually busted out yellow spandex in that movie, you would have gotten a completely different experience, which was interesting then when X-Men First Class did have the nod to that.
Yeah. See, now, well, let's stay with Dark Knight Rises first. Okay. We'll get into that. Here's, again, spoiler alert, here's where we get into specific plot points. Let's talk about what actually worked for you guys and what didn't. I'll tell you right now, everything worked for me, including, and I listened to your review, the end. Your friend, your special guest, Danielle, said that she mentioned that it ended on a happy ending. You said, well, where I missed that part, what was that?
Yeah.
What did you not see happy about the end?
Well, no, it wasn't that it didn't end with a sense of hope. Like, I get that there was a sense of hope in what was presented because they got through the crisis and they got through the drama, and now everybody's grown a little bit. Well, I think that's what was supposed to happen, was that everybody was supposed to have grown a little bit and found something else. I didn't find that sense of growth for the characters, and I didn't feel like anybody really had a journey that they went on, except Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and going from
I was
a street
agree
cop.
with that.
Except where he went from being a street cop to like looking at what Batman meant for him.
He's a detective.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's a detective, and now he has a lot more confidence, and I think he also is just a lot more depressed about the world.
Yeah, but Batman was able to make what you would call the ultimate sacrifice, right? By letting himself be killed for the city and showing them that he cared and whatever, even though he ended up getting out of it. At this point where he is in that timeline, he was able to make that decision and realize he was never coming back, never going to have his fortune, never be himself again, and able to do that in an instant and then take off and start a whole nother life and be someone totally different. And I think that was the end of his journey, and that was something that he grew to be able to do when it was needed.
I just feel like he went from it just didn't feel like a lot of growth. I get that he went on it. It just wasn't an interesting journey, and it felt disjointed, and everything that happened in the prison I felt was really, it was just...
The prison was weird for me too. I will agree with you. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's a little forced, and the old guy that was there was talking to him was like, okay, this is very staged feeling.
Yeah, like
I agree with that.
And I mentioned in my original review, that it just felt like a trope, right? And it also didn't feel organic to Batman's story in this way, to take him out of the action and then he has to retrain and do this whole thing. I'm like, that doesn't feel like a Batman story to me.
Well, and I think it served its purpose in removing him from the situation long enough to make it as bad as it was. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you where I felt like it could have been a little bit better.
Yeah.
My turn?
Your turn.
Couple of things. First of all, as you guys all know, not just for the Batman movies, but I've always said Christopher Nolan is one of today's geniuses as far as it comes to storytelling, directing, and Nolan I trust. This is why. No, this is why. The whole movie, why is it called Dark Knight Rises?
Because it was him coming back out
Wrong.
From whatever.
The whole story was a setup to the Robin character rising, and that's why the title comes. Yes, it is.
No,
Christopher Nolan has said that himself.
How do you not see that? Come on, you have to say that's plausible.
No, it's plausible, but like saying that the entire title is based on Robin's journey. What?
Have you noticed who's in the movie more?
No, I know that I already said he had a much bigger story arc.
I don't think it's based on a specific character rising. I think it's based on the idea of Batman rising.
The
idea of the figure.
That's fine. That's fine for me, for people to internalize what Batman could be to them.
The other reason why the Dark Knight Rises doesn't fit, especially when he's in the pit. That pit, as a real Batman comic book fans know, it's supposed to be the Lazarus pit. That's what it stands for. That's why the Ra's al Ghul, it's Ra's, not Ra's al Ghul, is in there. We kind of had a feeling where it was going to go. It didn't go there. On second, third viewings, that prison scene sets up to make it obvious the Talia al Ghul reveal. The hints are right there.
Oh, sure. But to me, I wasn't like...
And actually,
dropping my jaw at that.
Something I heard in your review that I wanted to talk about is when you said that he's still a broken man. No, he's not. He's the happiest he's ever been. This goes back to sort of the end of Begins, but especially The Dark Knight. He keeps saying, when you first see the copycats, and you ask him, what's different from us? You're not wearing hockey pads. Remember what Alfred says? You should hire them and take a day off. He says Batman can't take a day off. His whole thing is he wants Rachel, not our Rachel. He wants to be with her and have a normal life. And
hey, I could be her.
He wants to probably
I see
look
you
better
volunteering.
than the one they used.
All right.
But they used he's trying to use Rachel as the excuse to leave the Batman, the cowl, hang it up. So obviously he doesn't want to be the Batman. It wasn't as strong as it is in Dark Knight. Obviously, it happened the past 8 years. He wasn't the Dark Knight anymore. He doesn't want to be Batman. He's kind of forced to come out because he kind of has to one last time. and you kind of knew where it was going because...
Oh, yeah, the very beginning of the movie when Alfred was like, I pictured one day I would be sitting at this cafe and I'd be drinking my normal drink and I'd look up and I'd see you and we wouldn't even say hello, but we would know that we have moved on. And I'm like, oh, so, okay, that's how the movie's ending. Okay, that's nice.
And by the way, who didn't think of Inception the first time you saw that thing and you saw him in the cafe at the end?
I didn't think of Inception. I just rolled my eyes because it was feeling very hokey.
Oh, come on. Even though it was cheesy, I wanted to see that at the end, too.
Well, but that's just it. It felt like a cheap gimme.
Now, the reason why Michael Uslan even bought the rights to make these Batmans is because he wanted the dark Batman. And they knew where it was going to go. They like he said it to you directly when you asked him. It's not for everybody.
I told him that, no, I was completely on that track, and I was convinced that, you're right, and not every movie that comes out has to be for me. But you're asking me what I thought of it, and, that's what I thought of it. I'm also kind of a story snob. So when it comes down to it, if you're not going to give me cheesy popcorn action movie like in Avengers, where I can suspend disbelief and just not worry too much about the story because what I'm on is a roller coaster ride and I don't have to sit and examine. But this was a movie that was presented to be examined and meant to be thoughtful and meant to make you question what you were seeing. And I did that. So, effective movie making. But I don't, there were places where it let me down.
You are questioning.
I just said I was.
Warner Brothers, JGL as Robin, Batman. Come on, when? What are you doing? That's the question that remains at the end.
I did just read a
tweet.
That is. I did just read a tweet today where somebody was pointing out, I'll even mention it was John Scalzi, the author, was saying hey, I live in a world where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an action hero. The hell? Not complaining, just the hell. And I'm like, yes, that right there. I retweeted that because I'm like, yes.
It's called acting.
No, because he's amazing. I've had a crush on him since we were both 12. I mean, come on.
However, as a movie, it served its purpose. It reached the fans that it needed to reach. It created new fans. And honestly, for big Batman fans like me or anybody else, even more so, it was an awesome Batman.
No argument here.
Okay.
So now I'm going to ask the obvious question, me as the Christopher Nolan fan here, is could anything have topped what's behind us here, The Dark Knight?
Yeah, you say...
I'm glad it's all part of the same trilogy, but the reactions that were happening with The Dark Knight, I think they could have only happened once.
Because that movie can stand alone, not as a superhero movie, just as a movie itself. If you like, the Godfather type of movies, all that's in here in The Dark Knight also. If you like just mystery type of movies, that's in there too. If you like action movies, that's in there.
There was no mystery in this movie.
That's why I had to play detective.
No.
Which is what he is to begin with.
No, it wasn't a mystery setup at all.
Oh, the biggest mystery really would be the Joker himself. Is what's the point? Like Alfred said, he just wants to see the world burn. But
psychological thriller, not mystery. Just saying.
Oh.
Not
thing
to be
you
pedantic.
Said. You also said, why do we need an what did you say, an anarchist?
Oh, film? I straight up, this is a personal preference. This doesn't have anything to do with anybody else's view. I personally hate anarchist villains. Evil for evil's sake and motiveless malignity. It just makes me... It does not engage me. It doesn't engage me into the world that's being presented.
But it does.
No.
Yeah,
look at your view of the world, and if anything throws a little monkey wrench into it, that's why you need those type of villains.
No. I'm less interested in them.
So what? Rachel?
I think they're the scariest ones because there's no rhyme or reason, right? They're just throwing the monkey wrench in to see what happens, and they're the hardest to figure out how to bring down. So those are the ones that I go...
But then as a story nerd, I'm like, okay, so you are now just a MacGuffin in the story. You're a plot point. You're not really a character with motive. You're just serving the function of the story. But you never know. Yeah. Yep.
And he takes characters on journeys that they might not have otherwise gone on because of that chaos factor.
But Bane didn't, and What's-Her-Name didn't. They were very much like, okay, so you had the twist where, oh my god, no, I'm the child from the pit, and I'm the one who's the child of Ra's al Ghul, da da da, right? And so you have the whole thing, and that, my friends, is why we told you it was a spoiler alert. But they didn't have a journey. What they had was a reveal. They had a plot twist, so they were only a plot point. They weren't really characters in and of themselves.
Okay, but I don't think they were meant to be. I mean, as far as this goes, that would have been a really, really long movie.
Well, and again, this is a personal preference thing. This is like, I don't find that as engaging as a villain with like a real backstory. I thought like even Loki had a more interesting role as a villain.
He did not.
He had the brother dynamic with the like wounded child and trying to get back at like my dad by lashing out at an entire world was to me a more compelling backstory.
That secret scene with Thanos threw it all out.
Why?
Because he's just a puppet. Just like Bane was at the end.
Yeah, no, but he had a backstory and a motive and a real history with this.
That continues in Thor 2. That has nothing to do with the Avengers.
Thanos went and like directed and said, okay, well, I'm a puppet master and I see that this person is on this path, so I'm going to put this other stuff in their way and see what happens and make all the deathy things happen.
It's not like they closed off those characters to where there couldn't be a backstory or a more in-depth story. It just wasn't shown on screen. No,
I mean, they weren't meant. You could go and write fan fiction and give them a lot more interesting background. But let's look at what was on screen. With
this one, believe it or not, there were some people who went to the Avengers cold, as in they didn't watch Iron Man or any other movies, and it wouldn't have made the dynamics that were there in the other movies wouldn't have made any sense to them. Just it's thrown out in the middle. Oh, it's my brother, and then you make a funny joke and you move on. And when he says, oh, he's adopted, actually.
Well, no, they had a little bit more exposition between that, and then they had those conversations in the beginning when Thor and Loki, like when Thor went and like grabbed Loki, and then they had the conversation on the Cliffy thing. Like that
again, that conversation would make no sense to someone who didn't watch Thor.
It was giving I think that you're extrapolating less intelligence for people who are watching that cold. I think that if you already knew the story, the speech felt like the speech felt like exposition, but if you were coming in cold, it was explaining the dynamic.
No.
I don't. Yeah. Only because I had people that went to the movie with me that had not seen the other ones, and I had to try to explain because they were going, "What?" So,
all right, okay, that's fair. Because
and that's only from firsthand experience. You know what I mean?
Right. I just assumed that there was enough upfront context that people could extrapolate the background. But if you're telling me that there wasn't, that I can't argue against actual experience.
I would have agreed with you if I hadn't seen it.
Did you go into this like I did, but Spider-Man expecting to be let down?
No. I go into every movie that I've never seen before with like open expectations. Because
I do remember a tweet you sent right before you went in, and you said you were lowering your expectations.
No, I believe my tweet was along the lines of, oh, this is going to be dark and depressing. But I talked to the executive producer. I think I had a little bit of an inside hint that it was going to be a little bit dark. Also, that the two movies prior had set those expectations. But doesn't mean that when I go in, I'm like ramping and open for an emotional journey that the movie's going to take me on.
See, this is what's beautiful about just movies, period. Not just comic book movies, but any movies. Everybody sees it differently.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I loved it. Perfect ending for my type of Batman story. Rachel, what'd you think?
I loved it, too. It was exactly what I wanted and more.
I thought it was a well-realized artistic vision that I don't want to see again.
So here comes the 250 million or more question. Reboot, or what do you want to see? Because you know it's coming back. Warner Brothers is not going to kill Batman. Christopher Nolan or not.
I think Rachel has something to say.
Yes, I want to see Nightwing, okay? Aww. I want the same darkness, but I want Nightwing.
But do it right, not like Venom.
I would think that this franchise needs to stay dark or you lose the legitimacy of it. So even though I don't necessarily want another dark Batman movie, I think that it would be better if they stayed dark.
You can't go back to the funny stuff now.
Well, see, how do you do that without getting, like you said, too depressing? Where emotionally batters you.
Well, it finds you find the story. For me, I like redemption stories. I like stories that end with a sense of growth having happened. So for me, there are plenty of opportunities to do that. You can find some people from the Rogues Gallery and follow their journeys and see and you know what you do is you go to the Batman animated series. Because that was amazing, and that's what defined Batman for me in a lot of really fundamental ways. So you can find, I would go back and find the stories from there. There were really serious stories. There were really serious, interesting dynamics that were set up, and you could play in that sandbox just fine.
See, and the creator of that, actually, Paul Dini, because he's a friend of the show, he actually liked Dark Knight Rises, too. He liked how it ended.
He probably did. Again, well-realized artistic vision. I'm going to say that a lot.
You just needed your blankie and your little stuffed animal to go run and hide after. It's okay.
It's just too dark for me, but that's okay.
So Christmas, Rachel, we'll get her a stuffed Robin. Everything will be good.
Look, does it have to be stuffed?
Wait, no.
No.
Nightwing.
No, for you're getting a Nightwing. Apparently for me, I'm getting a stuffed Robin, but I'd rather not. Never mind. Anyway, moving on.
Don't buy her stuffed things.
So, like I mentioned, also, Dark Knight Rises, the movie, it kind of represents the end of the summer blockbuster season. So let's look back at that a little bit. We're gonna do. We've done it since we started on the when we were a live 5-day thing, live call-in show. We
Back
did it
in
then.
the day.
We did it then. We did it last year. We're gonna do it again this year with the new crew that we have, and that is the. We still haven't come up with a name for it. We call it the Geek Speak Blankety Blank Awards, because we just couldn't come up with a clever name. But it's just basically the awards for our movies, not the boring ones or the Oscar movies, as I refer to them, the boring ones.
And Arielle and I may or may not be in presenting dresses.
Yeah, we do have a video show, so we can't see that though.
I do love costuming in formal wear.
Yeah, so let's do a little tease, not give it away. What were some of the most enjoyable movies from the summer? I guess, should we start with Avengers or want to go with Hunger Games?
Let's start with Hunger Games, because I found that to be a more enjoyable movie and a more engaging movie than I was ready to let it be. And so to me, that was the surprise movie that I liked.
You had read the book before?
I had not.
Oh.
I went in totally cold. I knew that there was archery. That was
and
it.
It was Robin Hood.
I had watched all the trailers and I knew there were books and everything, so I did a little bit of research, but I went in just having no expectation and show me what this is, and I was hooked too.
Yeah, I found that the world wasn't a pleasant world to live in, but that it was engaging, and I wanted to know more about it, and which is why I then went and read all 3 of the books in the next 2 weeks, because I was like, I need to know everything else now.
Did reading the book afterwards make you look at the movie differently?
It made me want to watch the movie again when it comes out on DVD, just to see it and then look for the little hidden references that I should now understand that I wouldn't have understood before, but I felt were references. So now I just want to go back and watch it again with the more information and a different set of eyes.
Yeah, last summer, surprise hit, I keep saying, the mainstream one was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but my favorite still, Attack the Block. We didn't have an Attack the Block. Well, you can kind of consider Chronicle that, sort of, but it didn't have the same impact that Attack the Block did.
But wait, didn't Fright Night come out last summer?
I don't know.
I think Fright Night came out last summer, and Fright Night, underrated, brilliant remake of a movie. Just that was really good last year.
See, and I didn't get into that because I never really cared about the first one to begin with, so I wasn't really caring about this one.
But this one had David Tennant in leather pants. Really
there we go again.
Hot. Really, and the eye makeup and the whole thing. I mean, and it also had Marty Noxon, which is more what gave me credit for going to see the movie than not. Marty Noxon, who's a Buffy alum, who I've really liked the work that she does on TV shows, went and took a stab at this rewrite, and I thought it was just really good.
What did you like this summer, Rachel?
I still liked Avengers the best. And I loved this Batman. This is really good, but I still am hung up on Avengers.
Yeah, I liked Avengers. I was looking forward to what they were going to do, after setting up with all the movies, and the payoff was perfect.
The payoff was so good. Obviously, I didn't need to say how much I loved Avengers. Everyone knows.
Yeah,
yes.
I mentioned it there during the Dark Knight Rises show. on New Year's Eve this year when it hit 2012, the movie I was looking forward to was Dark Knight Rises. So no matter what, I kept saying all 3 years, and Nolan I trust. After Inception, I was really impressed with that. So I knew he was going to do good, and he did good with this one. Men in Black 3 came out, and I didn't see it. Either of you see it?
Didn't see it.
No.
I guess that tells us everything.
That'll be a DVD one for me. Although I heard really good things about it. Doesn't really help y'all that I have nothing more to say.
I just thought it had been too long between the last time we saw him to have any real kind of interest in it.
No, for me, it was that it wasn't going to be a priority movie, but I felt like, it'll be fun and campy and DVDable.
Yeah, see, my brother's a big fan, and he went, and he loved it and called me raving about it, and I just was like, I'll see it on DVD. I agree.
And then what else do we have?
Oh, Cabin in the Woods, the other Joss Whedon movie.
Yeah.
Although, it was also...
Sam Raimi.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Sam Raimi. Was it Stephen DeKnight? Who am I? I'm totally embarrassing myself, but there was another...
No, Cabin in the Woods. No, that was Eli Roth had some hand in it, I think.
No, it was...
No, he did. Wasn't he a producer with Joss or something?
No, but I'm thinking of who the director was, and I am going to get really flogged online if I can't come up with this. But it was another guy who also came from the Whedon camp, who was the director. And, it was just a really good horror movie. And I don't like horror movies. And I thought that this one was exactly the right tone. I felt like very much the audience it was meant for.
Anything else that you guys liked over the summer? It's starting to sound like it wasn't a very eventful summer.
I'm still going to see Brave. I still haven't given up hope that I'm going to see it, because Brave needs
I'm really
to be
sad.
seen.
Yeah, I'm really sad I didn't get to see it yet.
I know. I failed at everything. And the weekend that it came out, I was going to try to go see it with some friends, and then I didn't. And then, yeah.
Hey, Rachel, this is a question for you. Let me ask you this. You're the animation guru. What is the big deal with the Pixar movies besides all that? Because to me, I don't really care about it because it's the same stuff over and over.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not even the animation expert,
boring.
And I think that you're crazy.
They're just boring. I mean, it's the same stuff over and over.
I'm going to let Rachel finish first, because otherwise I have a lot of things to say.
I'll give you this specific example. My nieces went crazy over the WALL-E movie, and I was like, who cares? It's just a robot with whatever.
Do you Wait, I'm sorry, do you not have a soul?
Yeah, I do. I also have a brain, too. That's why I said it's... Yeah, and...
Hold on. First of all, WALL-E has to be in a class all of its own, because that was the most successful story told with, minimal words.
Yeah, that was no dialogue. That was an amazing visual storytelling moment. Just because you're not interested enough in it doesn't mean it wasn't good.
I didn't say it wasn't good. I just said, who cares? The same stuff over and over and over.
Everybody else.
All right, so WALL-E broke ground in that, so it has to be set aside. But as far as Pixar goes, the reason why these things are amazing and why people like me that are animation students, artists, whatever, want to go and see them is because each movie is showing off another talent as far as 3D goes. So for Brave, example, is the hair. Hair is, excuse my French, awful, a bitch to render, to put on a character, to control.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've done it, and it's really awful. So for them to be able to have a character where her hair is wild and all over the place and the light comes through it perfectly and all of these things, and to have that renderable in the film is them showing, hey, we have the control on this technology. So when you have the other ones, WALL-E, any other one that you want to think of, Up, they were showing off different aspects of the art. So...
And for me, if you go through it, and I don't have the same technical appreciation until the DVDs come out, and then I watch all the bonus material, and then I'm like, oh wow, that must have been really hard. Look at them being awesome figuring it out. But I like that they do this fully realized stylistic thing in every movie, so that The Incredibles looks completely different than Monsters, Inc., and that they make a fully realized world that is visually interesting and, to me, stunning, and comes out of nowhere. It's not like there's a props department where they're like, okay, so we need a vase and some flowers, and those all exist. They have to make from literally scratch everything that they do. And to me, that's just, to do it so well is really impressive.
Okay, so that is the summer stuff. I think I always say the Scream Awards is our awards. We should just cancel it. Avengers should just get everything now. That's like a duh. But like I said, we'll do our whatever. I don't know. Somebody come up with a fancy
all right,
name
no,
for
that's
this
it.
thing.
Everybody on Twitter, start suggesting names for our awards and use the hashtag Geek Speak Award.
The awards.
Yeah, plural.
Awards. The Geek Speak Awards hashtag.
That's the name. The awards. Why think so much?
No. Let's give people a chance to be more creative. So
Ooh,
I want to hear what people suggest.
I'll even design the awards once you guys come up with the name. It'll be perfect.
Ooh, we'll have a logo, and can we have
No.
a little
This year we
virtual
actually will have
trophy?
real awards.
I like
We've
it.
never had that before, so this year we are going to have a real award that they can actually touch, and we can hand to Joss and RDJ and all the Avengers.
Right, because we're going to have them in studio
They
for
don't have
the
to be in
award
studio.
ceremony.
We can send it to them, you know. They're a little busy.
They're a little busy to come up to San Francisco.
Yeah. Plus, we do it at the end of the year. Everybody's into the holidays and wants to be with their family anyway. So we'll just send it to them, and they can. Again, this technology, they can record a thank you video, and we can play it for everybody.
It can be up on their shelves in a place of honor.
And they can and they will do that. Wait till you see what we're going to do with the man, Stan Lee. That's in December. Yes, that's a tease. So again, Dark Knight we liked. Even Arielle
Loved.
Yeah.
No. Y'all loved it, and I appreciated its artistic vision.
Yes. And we can't wait to see what happens with it after. Amazing Spider-Man, it was okay for me. Like I said, I really, really, really wanted to be the surprise hit of the summer. I wanted that to be the Attack the Blog. I wanted all of it to prove me wrong. Eat crow, all that. It didn't. I wish it had it. Part of it is again, it wasn't as obvious this time around as what was Spider-Man 3. Sony got too much involved in this thing. They made Mark Webb make too many cuts, and it looked like a disjointed movie. The story would have made perfect sense, even as shades of Ultimate Spider-Man, if they had kept what they originally were going to do. Hopefully, with 2, because they are going to do it, and 3, it becomes more Sony gets away and let's
right,
because also they said Mark Webb may not return because of quote unquote obstacles.
Sony's not going to get their fingers out of that pie because they're idiots.
So that if that's the case, you know how much money the Avengers made. Marvel, and you have friends at Marvel, buy it away from them already.
Oh my God,
Seriously.
please get the licensing under control, and then we could have the real Avengers.
And even if not, all studios, really, Sony, Columbia, Disney, Marvel, everybody, here, all three of us, we're going to say it. If you do some kind of deal, you split the money however the hell you want to split it, but if you put Andrew Garfield or just Spider-Man in costume with RDJ, with Captain America, you really think we're not going to be there 4 or 5 times on opening weekend?
Seriously, people.
Seriously.
That is just, you were leaving money on the table.
You thought those billions the Avengers made was something? Wait till you see if you do that.
Yeah, at the most popular superhero ever.
Like, don't think Warner Brothers isn't taking notes.
Oh, yeah. No.
You have Christian Bale, maybe, be able to come back if you
No,
give him a boatload of money.
I believe him.
You got Henry Cavill, you got everybody. The Justice League movie. Hello, you got a Green Lantern now even. Don't think they're not taking notes for that. But don't mess that up.
They need to find a director and a screenwriter, and then I'll be excited about it.
Yeah, so that's what's our thoughts on summer movies, The Dark Knight Rises specifically. What are we doing next week?
I think we're going to speak more geek.
Yeah, we should. But before we do that, let's speak about the books that we have.
Okay.
Anybody have books?
So I was lucky enough to pick up an advanced reader copy of the book that John Barrowman and Carol Barrowman, brother-sister team, Captain Jack Harkness from Torchwood and Doctor Who. So they wrote a book, and it's called Hollow Earth, and I got an autographed advanced reader copy, and I'm starting to read it. I'm really liking it. So Hollow Earth, it'll be out later this year, and I'm going to recommend people pick it up when it's available.
Can they pre-order yet?
I'm sure they can pre-order it on Amazon.
So go on there.
So you can check it out. It's surprising. I don't know. Surprising to me. Surprisingly well written.
Rachel, what you got?
Okay, so there's a little short story real quick about why I'm choosing this book. So I was watching Avatar last night on TV.
So good.
And I know, I love Avatar. And somebody said, oh, when I saw this, I thought of Dances with Wolves, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, yeah, everybody else says Fern Gully. And, and I explained how you can reference any movie to previous films, okay? And they were like, oh, yeah, I guess, whatever. And so it got me thinking we could banter back and forth and say one thing is like another, and we could always find something to compare them to. But what I'm going to suggest is actually The Hero's Journey, the book A Hero with 1,000 Faces. It's Joseph Campbell's work. He's the one that discovered what the hero's journey is. And for those of you that don't know, that's basically the entire storyline, the entire arc of every major hero character in any book, movie, whatever you can find. I even wrote short stories and went back after I discovered this and found that my characters followed this format, which is insane. So if you want to nerd out a little bit more than usual, definitely read A Hero with 1,000 Faces, because you're going to be able to see how every hero's journey goes and pick apart the plot points and be able to see how everything is related to this one crazy line, which is insane, of all time. So check it out.
What is it called again?
It's called A Hero with 1,000 Faces, and it's the hero's journey.
Who's the author?
Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, somebody that inspired your idol a lot, George Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right.
I'm going classic this week. And I'm only thinking the end of the year, but I'm going classic, and that is the Narnia books. I always reread Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, the Narnia books. Sometime during the year, I was just bored, and that's what I do. I pick up the Narnia books and start reading them. Got through them in 2 days. Yes, I did. And so I'm going with that one, all of them. C.S. Lewis, of course, but if you didn't know that, welcome back from Mars. How was the atmosphere up there? And so that is mine. All the links will be up on our book club section. So before we go, one more thing. Last week, Arielle, you'll remember because you were right in front of me. I dropped a little hint that we were going to have a big, huge guest from my wants list. It would have been the Captain Kirk, William Shatner. But he's a little busy. He did say, well, his people talked to my people, which means me. And they said he will come on some other time. He was going to come on because he's promoting a new documentary that's coming out this Saturday. It's called Get a Life. If you all remember the Saturday Night Live skit that he did. And I really want to talk to him about this, and he is going to come on this show and a lot of shows like this one, because kind of like what happened to Leonard Nimoy when Leonard Nimoy said, I'm not Spock. He even wrote a book saying, I'm not Spock, and then he changed his mind.
And then he changed another one.
Yeah, and they had to
I am Spock.
Title it, I am Spock after all. William Shatner is kind of going through the same thing right now, believe it or not. He didn't really like the fact that everybody knows him as Captain Kirk. He wanted to be T.J. Hooker or whatever he was.
I will say that I loved him in Boston Legal. That was fantastic.
That's true.
So good. True. But anyway, you were saying.
I liked him in the what are the price thing?
The Priceline commercials?
Yeah, I liked him in
really?
Those.
I thought you were going to have him on the show.
Yeah, I even liked him in My Dad Said, believe it or not. But he will come on only because of the name of our show, and he's accepting his role as captain, as he says in my later years. He's accepting the fact that he is Captain Kirk. He will forever be Captain Kirk. That's what this documentary really is about. Yes, it focuses on the fans, kind of like Rod Roddenberry's Trek Nation. Mm-hmm. It's about Star Trek, obviously, but it's more about him finding out about his dad through the fans. Mm-hmm. Same thing with William Shatner, and it comes out on epics.com, which is think of it as Paramount Pictures' version of Netflix or one of the download things. You can go, if you don't have it, you can go on there and get a free trial. You can watch. What do you call it?
Is it streaming online or is it downloadable through the site?
Both, and that will start this Saturday, the 28th. But he was going to come on and talk about that, and especially, like I said, I want to talk to him more about, and we will talk to him about how did he come to that? How did all these years as the most famous role he's ever had as Captain Kirk? Why did it take this long for him to realize, hey, I will forever be Captain Kirk, and now he loves us. Now he's not telling us to get a life. So he will come on sometime, not sure when, but you will hear from Captain Kirk soon on the Geek Speak show. So now, who wants to end the show?
I think in honor of you coming back, Rachel, why don't you close us off this week?
I love doing this. All right, guys. Check us out next week where we will speak more geek.
I'm ready. What are we doing again?
The Geek Speak Show will be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, follow them on Twitter at Geek Speak Show 1. That's the number 1. Become a fan on Facebook. Subscribe on iTunes. Watch special event coverage and the Geek Speak video show on YouTube/Geek Speak Videos. And listen to past shows in the archive section on thegeekspeakshow.com. A big thank you to the Geek Speak Show's content providers, GeekTyrant.com, Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and MightyVille.com. The Geek Speak Show.